you're about to watch is either sponsored, paid, unpaid, or funded by the viewers, and features products that were either failed, provided, or bought and carefully snuck into the house under the cover of darkness.
Hello, fellow guitar geeks. Welcome to Top 5 Tones, the show in which I take a piece of gear and give you my 5 favourite sounds from it. Today, the Ripped Speaker Fuzz from Electro Harmonics. Yet another nano-sized fuzz pedal. I can't keep up and I need to have them all. But I'm not complaining because it's a fuzz and fuzz is life. This one, the Ripped Speaker, is said to emulate the sound of a ripped speaker, and in this video we're going to find out if it does that, and also find the 5 favourite tones, which is fun for me because we could go all balls out and turn it all the way up, which we probably will, but also I'm going to get the little subtle speaker rips, you know, for those tiny little tears. If you look at the history of rock and roll and electric guitar, which are forever intertwined, you'll come up with 3 main stories that credit the beginning of distorted guitar. There was the song Rocket 88, in which the amp apparently fell off the car travelling to the studio, destroyed some of it, and they tried to fill it with newspaper and created this fuzzy tone. That's apparently the first ever. The second was Link Wray, when he tried to recreate this by poking holes in the speaker with a pencil. And the third most famous story about ripped speakers is You Really Got Me by the Kinks and Dave Davis, who intentionally took a razor blade to his speaker and destroyed it. Let's take a look at this fuzzy little chap. We've got the input to plug your guitar in, and then we've got the amp to go to the amp or to another pedal if you wish, and then the 9-volt power in. There's also a battery inside, which I found out earlier, but I'm running off power today. Very simple 4-knobber. We've got fuzz, tone, rip, and volume. The fuzz controls, how much fuzz the pedal creates, so more is more. Turning it right will give you more fuzz. The tone knob is an active tilt shift EQ, so that basically means if you turn it this way, the tone gets darker and more bass frequencies will be accentuated. Turn it this way and the tone will get brighter and it sounds more toppy. Set it in the middle and the EQ is flat. The volume adjusts the output volume of the pedal, so if you're bringing that fuzz up, the signal might get louder, so take the volume down to not break your amp or indeed break your ears. Now on to my favourite knob. The rip knob is a bias control, and setting it in the middle is actually the cleanest fuzz, in the sense that it's less compressed and more open. As you turn it to the left, this way, you're going to alter that bias, and the same as you turn it to the right. So we're going to find out in this video what those 2 things do, and this, I think, could be the secret sauce to this pedal. What the rip knob is going to do is create more silence, more gated, more spluttery kind of fuzz, which I absolutely adore and cannot wait to try out. The guitar I'm using today is the very beautiful Ibanez AHM90 in cherry red flat. It's a semi-hollow, it's got Super 58 pickups, and I think it's going to sound pretty good with this sort of... I want it to sound like an old style, like a 50s fuzz, which is what we're going for this. But I think we can get pretty raucous as well. That's going directly into the ripped speaker, which is in turn going into the Fender Deluxe Reverb head, into the Harley Benton 212 Vintage with Celestion V30s, mic'd up by a Sennheiser E906. That's a lot of geeky information. Let's get some sounds. Before I do get to the top 5 tones, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video so that more people get to see it and experience the fuzziness that is the ripped speaker. Here's our clean tone. The first tone is a Rocket 88 style 50s thing, which is very, very subtle and certainly not balls out. So we're starting off slowly and we're just getting that kind of accidentally dropped on the floor speaker tone. So it sounds like this. So on the pedal, the fuzz is turned all the way down. I've got the bias at a point where it reacts nicely with the guitar, and it's just kind of adding that nice little not clean. I think that's a brilliant tone. For number 2, I want to get something a bit more Link Wray, so a little bit more distorted, a bit more fuzz, but nothing too far from tone number 1. So this is pencil poked through the speaker time. So that one's not that far from tone number 1, but there's more girth, there's more roundness, which actually doesn't sound that much like the original Rumble, but it's getting that that tone. So you would really need to take down the bass on the guitar or bass on the amp for that. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mess with my favorite settings on the Deluxe Reverb. However, I could add some vibrato from the amp, giving us something a bit more authentic. For this one, I've switched to the Telly because the Ibanez with the humbuckers was giving me too much girth, too much roundness. I wanted something thinner, and I want to roll off the volume, which I've rolled off to about 7. And the pedal, I've changed the bias ever so slightly, and found that the bias reacts very differently depending on which guitar you plug into it, which is very, very cool. So it may look like I've not moved it at all, but indeed it's reacting differently with this guitar. This tone is based around the Kinks sort of sliced razor blade speaker tone, and you'll hear in the single notes that it's starting to give that sputteriness. I think this pedal excels at giving that just little hint, the subtlety. So yes, when I first plugged into this pedal in Klangfarbe in Vienna, I was doing the maximum stuff, which I'm going to go into in a second. However, I think this pedal really adds that little bit of naughtiness to the tone, which is really, really fun. But speaking of naughtiness, let's get super naughty. Now we're ripping. Now the rip is up pretty high, the fuzz is at maximum, and I'm going to go for some sort of gated synth kind of riffs, which, if you're not careful, will lose your notes. You've got to hit pretty hard, and they sound like this. When I went up the high frets, you could hear that note kind of dying. There we go. It kind of sucks it away, which is cool, but I think that's reserved for riffing. So that's what you're probably expecting when you're thinking of the Ripped Speaker Fuzz. Yeah, it does that as well. Let's see if we can get even more crazy. For my final tone, I'm going to go drop D and sludgy, doomy, riffing madness with some bends in there. It's going to be pretty nasty. It got way less musical at the end, but it was fun just to hear those notes. As a bonus tone, you're probably wondering what happens if I turn the fuzz and the rip all the way up. Well, it sounds like pretty much nothing. It sounds like this. So yeah, it works. You've got to hit really hard, and then it sounds pretty cool. But you might think you've broken the pedal if you don't hit hard. There's me hitting. There, they just die off. So the Ripped speaker is not as useless as I first thought it was. It's really, really cool if you get the settings right. It's really super sensitive to the guitar you're playing and exactly where that bias is set, exactly how a bias should react. And the fuzz just is a good fuzz. You know, it's a thick fuzz. The tone, I could have a little bit more tonal options, preferably. But the tone does its job. You should be able to create the rest of the tone with the EQ on the amp. I'd like to see more reaction from this tone though. I know I've given you one too many already, but I hope no one complains if I just show you what happens if you play and turn the rip knob up and down. You get some really interesting noise. So I'm going to give the fuzz right in the middle and then put that at 0, so we've got a pretty much standard setting. And if you go all the way down, it kind of just... Yeah, you got nothing. But let's go all the way to the top. I could play this pedal for hours. This is, if you're into synthy, gated, doomy stuff, this could be the one for you. Also, if you're into some kind of 50s band where you just want to play that subtle rock and roll with that edge, this could be for you. It does both sounds and a number of things in between. It's great. I didn't really think I'd enjoy this pedal because my first experiences were not that great. However, in making this video, I've kind of fallen in love with the Ripped Speaker from Electro Harmonix. Well done, EHX. So, what was your favourite tone? Do you prefer it when it's sort of low and subtle in the 50s or full-on raging synthy gatiness? Let me know in the comment section down below how you preferred it. And while you're down there, also don't forget to smash that like. Very gently smash it, because then other people can see this, especially if it brought you joy in any way. You should like things that bring you joy. However, if it made you sad, then don't forget to absolutely obliterate the thumbs down button. That's what it's there for. Don't go anywhere though, because there are more videos over there featuring me and various guitar shenanigans. And if you're on the fence about buying the Ripped Speaker, I hope this video has helped you. I will see you soon. Bye bye.